What's up, everybody? It's JT Sports Match, you guys, with another video. This video, I'm here with my AFC West 2020 NFL draft grades. I'm going to be doing draft grades for all divisions. I already did AFC North. If you haven't already, make sure you go ahead and check that out. Now, before I get into it, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel below NFL videos and college football videos daily. So, for the AFC West, basically, every team in the division had a pretty good draft for the AFC West. The AFC West most definitely is going to be one of the most intriguing divisions to watch this upcoming season. So let's start off with the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos, these guys had a lot of draft picks and they got some really good players. First, they got Jerry Jeudy in the first round, 15th overall pick. Wow. Who could have predicted Jerry Jeudy slipping to basically the top half of the draft, and he just fell right in the Denver Broncos' lap. The Denver Broncos before the draft, including the fans, a lot of people felt they were going to have to end up trading up to try to get a guy like a CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy or potentially Henry Ruggs. Henry Ruggs went off the board first to the Las Vegas Raiders. Then you had the choice of CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy. And the Denver Broncos went with Jerry Jeudy, and I think that was an absolutely sensational pick, man. Wow. Who could have predicted two of the best wide receivers falling the way they did, man? It's not like a drastic fall, but we expected both those guys, Judy and Lamb, to go a lot earlier. So for the Denver Broncos, you got an exceptional wide receiver who you can pair up on the opposite side of Cortland Sutton. Then in the second round, they follow that up. They go ahead, they select KJ Hamler, one of the fastest wide receivers in this draft class. He is going to be a day one starter in that slot role for the Denver Broncos. So the Denver Broncos in their first two picks of the draft dramatically have already improved their offense. Drew Lock is going to have a lot of weapons at his disposal. So this Denver Broncos offense is going to be way, way better than what it was last season. Then you got Michael. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name, but this is a solid cornerback from Iowa. Now the question is, with everybody that's asking, is how good is he in man-to-man coverage? Because Iowa plays a lot of zone coverage, so never really seen a lot of him in man-to-man coverage. So it's going to be interesting to see how he fits in that Denver Broncos system and how good he's going to be in man-to-man coverage. Then they also took Lloyd Cushenberry, who was probably one of the best interior offensive linemen in this draft class. He went in the third round. I think he's a guy who could potentially start day one for the Denver Broncos. Then with their they had three third round selections, so they took Telvin Agam, the defensive tackle out of Arkansas. Now it's going to be remain seen if he's going to play end or if he's going to play tackle. He could play both of those. So I think that was another good selection. Telvin Agam is a guy whose draft stock kind of rose near the start of the draft. A lot of people had him projected to be like a day three guy going to somewhere in the fifth round. So his draft stock kind of went up as we neared the draft. And I think it's going to be a very good place for him to land in Denver. They also selected a tight end out of Missouri. They also selected Justin Strand, linebacker out of Wake Forest. I like him. And then probably one of the biggest steals of the draft, or one of the biggest steals from day three of the draft, they selected Nathaniel Mutai from Fresno State. This is a guy whose draft stock was projected to be like a second round or third rounder, but for some reason, he fell in the sixth round, and the Denver Broncos got an automatic starter in Mutai. I think this guy is going to be a day one starter without a doubt for the Denver Broncos, and I think that's one of the biggest steals in the draft. It's not quite often you get interior offensive lineman with day one starting capability that falls to you in like round six. So I think this was very good. A very good steal for the Denver Broncos. One of the biggest steals in his draft class. He also picked up Tyree Cleveland, who, if he's able to make the roster, is kind of like a physical down the field wide receiver. And then, my grade I'm going to give the Denver Broncos, I'm giving them an A plus 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 plus. I think they had the best draft. I think they had the best draft in the NFL. I'm gonna just be honest. I think this team drafted better than any team in the NFL. And they filled all their needs. Their offense is a lot better than what it was compared to last season. You got Melvin Gordon, you got Philip Lindsay, you got Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant, KJ Hamler in the slot. So this offense is going to be really good next season. And I'm really interested in seeing what this Denver Broncos offense does. I think they could be a sleeper to compete for that AFC West crown with the Chiefs. You also got the LA Chargers, whose draft wasn't not too shabby as well. They drafted Justin Herbert with their first selection. Then they traded up with the New England Patriots up to the 33rd overall pick back into the first round and select linebacker Kenneth Murray. Linebacker was one of the biggest needs that they had to fill, and Kenneth Murray most definitely fits that. Other than Isaiah Simmons, if Isaiah Simmons was not in this draft class, Kenneth Murray probably would be the best linebacker in this draft class. I mean, he is explosive, athletic, sideline to sideline linebacker, good speed, a very great tackler, has a great character as well. So, I mean, for the LA Chargers, man, their first two picks were pretty solid. I wasn't that high on the Justin Herbert pick, but I'm really high on the Kenneth Murray selection. Then in the fourth round, they went ahead and selected Joshua Kelly, the halfback out of UCLA. Go ahead, he could be the backup behind Austin Eckler. And Joshua Kelly, I mean, I think he was really solid for UCLA. He went a lot higher than I expected him to. I thought he probably would end up going in the sixth round or seventh round, so he went a lot higher than expected. And I think Kelly was a little bit overlooked in the draft process for the fact that he played for UCLA, and UCLA wasn't really that good. And I also feel UCLA didn't properly utilize him. So with the Chargers, I think he'll end up being a very solid backup behind Austin Eckler. They also selected Joe Reed and wide receivers KJ Hill. They took Joe Reed out of Virginia in the fifth round. They took KJ Hill out of Ohio State in the seventh round. I wasn't expecting KJ Hill to fall in the seventh round. I think that him and Joe Reed are probably going to be battling out in camp to see who ends up becoming that third wide receiver alongside of Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. So they also selected Gilman, safety out of Notre Dame. A lot of people are pretty high on him as well. But the grade I'm giving the Chargers, I'm giving them a B. The reason why I really wanted to give them a higher grade, but I mean, they walked out the draft not selecting a single offensive tackle at all. And that was one of the biggest needs that they needed to fill. And that need did not get filled. And a lot of other Chargers fans also complained about this on social media as well. So I'm not the only one who was saying that they should have taken a tackle. And I mean, it didn't really matter when they took a tackle. I mean, you could have at least took a tackle in the seventh, sixth round. Just take some kind of a tackle, man. So they didn't even take a tackle at all. And this is why I'm giving them a B grade. If they would have took a tackle, I probably would have gave them an A minus. But without that tackle, I think that's going to be a major hole going into training camp for the LA Chargers. Now for the Las Vegas Raiders, I think the Las Vegas Raiders, I mean, first they took Henry Ruggs the third out of Alabama, which surprised a couple of people, but not really, because when you think about the Raiders do like taking a lot of fast wide receivers. You think about the guy that they took a couple of years back in Darius Hayward-Bay, who was a speedster. So the Raiders love fast wide receivers, and you pair Henry Ruggs the third up with John Gruden. He's bound to find some ways to get his hands on the football, man. I'm pretty sure Gruden is going to have a lot of fun messing around with Henry Ruggs. I expect him to be in a lot of jet sweeps, reverses, a lot of deep bombs, a lot of post routes and things like that, double moves as well. The biggest question with Ruggs was going to be his route running, because normally when you have fast guys like a Henry Ruggs, and Michael Irvin said this at the NFL Combine, the fast guys, the speedsters, struggle in the NFL because they don't really know how to control their speed, and it doesn't really help them when it comes to running routes. So he worked out with Randy Moss. Randy Moss really helped him in his route running and running the route tree and things like that. So I'm really interested in seeing what Henry Ruggs does with the Raiders this upcoming season. I also selected one of my favorite players in this draft, and cornerback Damon Arnette. Damon Arnette reminds me a lot of Richard Sherman. I'm not comparing him to Richard Sherman at all. I'm just saying I kind of see a lot of similarities in their game when you talk about what Richard Sherman was coming out of Stanford. The biggest knock on Richard Sherman was that his speed couldn't really keep up with fast wide receivers. That's kind of the similar limitations that people are trying to say David Arnett has, which is why a lot of people didn't really want to take him in the first round. But I mean, he's he's really good in the open field. He's a solid tackler, and he's a really good zone corner as well. So I mean, basically the same knocks a lot of people had on Richard Sherman coming out of Stanford are the same knocks that a lot of people had on David Arnett. I think David Arnett is going to end up being a really good player. Now, they also selected my favorite player in the draft. I mean, Lynn Bowden is one of my favorite draft prospects ever. I mean, I loved watching him throughout Kentucky, and he had an interesting backstory when he played for the University of Kentucky last year. So basically, both of the University of Kentucky's Wildcats starting quarterbacks got injured. Terry Wilson was their first string quarterback. He went down with an injury. Then their other backup quarterback who was replacing Terry Wilson, he went down with an injury. So Lynn Bowden had to come in and he had to play quarterback. And I mean, he was a really good runner at the quarterback position. He also threw a game-winning touchdown pass in their bowl game as well. So I mean, Lynn Bowden, it's really interesting to see how John Gruden utilizes him. A lot of people said that he might end up switching to halfback, but personally, I like him at receiver. But I mean, it's just really interesting to see how the Raiders are going to use him. I mean, you could use him at wildcat quarterback, put him in at halfback. It's just really interesting to see how he's going to end up getting utilized. You also got Brian Edwards out of South Carolina with the next pick following the Lynn Bowden pick, which was another solid wide receiver as well. A lot of people had a third round grade. I had a third round grade on him as well. Then they selected Tanner Muse, the safety out of Clemson. Tanner Muse is a really big and physical safety. So the Las Vegas Raiders, they have a little bit of a controversy at the safety position. I'm really interested to see how that ends up playing out. Is Tanner Muse going to be the guy who ends up starting at that free safety spot, or are they going to end up moving Demarius Randall from corner to free safety? That's what the rumor is. They also took John Simpson, the guard out of Clemson. Now, John Simpson is a guy who should compete for one of those starting spots if they need or if they're looking for another guard. But I mean, if not, he will be a really good backup. They also selected Amik Robertson out of Louisiana Tech, which a lot of people are really high on as well, with the 139th overall pick. So overall, I'm giving the Las Vegas Raiders an A- grade. I think this draft was pretty good for the Las Vegas Raiders. They addressed all their needs. They went receiver heavy. They also selected a couple of good players on the defensive side of the ball, specifically cornerback. They added depth. They added some position balance. It's going to be really interesting to monitor and training camp. So I mean, the Raiders had a very good draft. I'm giving them an A-, like I said. So the last thing we have the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Kansas City Chiefs shocked a lot of people when they selected Clyde Edwards-Helaire with the last pick of the first round, which was a surprise to some. But when you think about it, a lot of people felt they would have taken DeAndre Swift. But I mean, the halfback class this year was, I mean, it wasn't bad at all. I mean, to be honest, I think it was really solid. The question is like, you can make a case for almost a lot of halfbacks in this draft class that they should be the first halfback taken off the board. And a lot of people felt that was going to be DeAndre Swift. But when you look at the skill set of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I mean, he fits the mold of what Andy Reid wants out of his halfbacks. He wants his halfbacks to be able to make some moves in the open field, and he also wants his halfbacks to have good hands out of the backfield. Clyde Edwards-Helaire can do everything, and Patrick Mahomes also recommended Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That's the rumor that has been circulating. So, I mean, they got the guy Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I like the pick. I think it's a good fit. They also selected linebacker Willie Gay Jr. out of Mississippi State. I like him as well. You also got Louis Niang out of TCU off the tackle. I'm going to be interested to see if they end up moving him to guard or if they keep him at that tackle spot. But I mean, I wasn't expecting him to be in the third round, especially at that point in the third round. I thought he would probably end up going somewhere in the second round. They also selected L'Jarius Sneed, the safety out of Louisiana Tech. Now, L'Jarius Sneed, he can play safety and both cornerback, but I think he's better at cornerback than he is safety. So I expect him to probably potentially be that day one starter at one of those cornerback spots, with the fact that they lost one of their starting cornerbacks from last season to free agency. They also selected Michael Dana out of University of Michigan. Solid edge rusher. Needs a little bit of honing, but I think he could be a very good fit in that Kansas City defense. So overall, I'm giving the Kansas City Chiefs an A- grade as well. Basically, all these teams drafted pretty well. The only reason I didn't get the Chargers at A or B+ at least was for the fact that they walked out this draft not selecting the offensive tackle, and I felt they definitely needed to walk out this draft coming in with a tackle. So let me know what you guys think about these grades down in the comment section down below. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel for more NFL videos and content. Thanks for watching.